How is it going, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Jason. In today's video, I wanted to do a quick little recap of Week 9 in the CFL. Usually I do my Monday appearance on the Markcast, and since I was under the weather on Monday, I just couldn't make an appearance on that this week. So figured I'd give you guys a little bit of recap content on the channel regardless. So we're going to quickly go through all these games, give you my thoughts on them, and all that. Okay, so first up, the highly anticipated matchup between Winnipeg and BC on Thursday night did not go according to plan if you're a BC Lions fan. Winnipeg wins 50-14. Kenny Lawler coming back into the lineup for his second game, I believe, back with the team. 7 receptions for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, just a dominant game for him. And I think that's my big takeaway for Winnipeg is that the big plays really showed up in this one. This is the first time that I think they really had all those guys that they had envisioned at the beginning of the season on the field at the same time. And I thought that they did a really good job executing, really just picking apart that BC defense, which had been excellent to this point of the season. And I think, BC had been on a historic pace on defense the last few weeks of the season. And I think that Winnipeg just really, made a statement in this one. It was really impressive. I think that, Dalton Schoen was really good in this one. Just looking over my notes here. The pressure was really good from the defense in this one. I think that right from the first snap, you saw that Dane Evans was not very comfortable. They did not allow him to get comfortable in the pocket. They hit him every time he let go of a pass. So I think at the end of the day, Winnipeg really made a statement and really proved that they're right up there, still very much in the conversation as the best team in the CFL. And other than that, I really don't have much to say in this one. Dane Evans actually got hurt in the end of the first half in this one, so Dominic Davis played the second half, and it was pretty much over at this point. I think it was 27-4 at halftime. 27-4, and ultimately, it was just over at that point. So I think at the end of the day, BC just kind of have to burn the film kind of game for them because they did do the same to Winnipeg earlier this season. They won 30-6. So I think that BC will just have to, erase the film from this one and rebound, I think, going forward. And I'm really excited for the third matchup between these two teams. I think it's in September or something like that. So really excited for that. Now moving on to the second matchup of the week, which was Friday night between the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts. Calgary won 20-7 after an early injury to Chad Kelly in this one. Looks like it's going to be okay. He didn't look like he was too hobbled. He stayed on the sideline a little bit. It was an ankle injury, so good sign going forward, hopefully, for that. But ultimately, he missed the rest of this game, basically 3/4 of it, and that really changed the complexion because the 7 points that Toronto scored was when Kelly was in the game in the first quarter. So Calgary really just shut them down from that point. I think this was a big win and a much-needed win for Calgary. I think the key for Jake Maier, yes, he only threw for 149 yards on 22 completions, but he only had or didn't have a turnover in this one, which is a big thing for him. I think this year he hasn't had very good luck with the turnovers. He's been turning the ball over very often in games, and I think that was a big reason why Calgary didn't blow this one. Calgary's defense finally able to close a game out. I think that was a big sign. They had a couple of third down stops late in this one that Toronto was trying to crawl their way back into it with Cameron Dukes at quarterback. But ultimately, again, with the Winnipeg game, I don't have too much to say about this one just because of the Kelly injury. I think really changed the complexion of it, and I really don't think that Calgary can really take too much away from the victory here just because they really weren't playing against a starting caliber quarterback on the other side. But huge win for them regardless, kind of saves their season in a way. I think if they had lost, they would have been 2-6. So getting to 3-5, staying in the realm of the possibility for that third place in the West Division. Of course, Saskatchewan winning this week, we'll talk about in a minute. But I think it was a big win for Calgary, but ultimately can't take too much from it from a schematic standpoint because of the missing starting quarterback for Toronto. And then just some extra notes on this one. Javon Leake had a bad mistake in this one right before the half. It was 10-7 for Calgary, and he let a punt bounce off of him and into the end zone where Calgary recovered on the last play of the first half and ultimately Calgary was able to go into halftime with a 10-point lead rather than a 3-point lead. That was absolutely huge and kind of devastating to a team that was already down to their backup quarterback who hadn't had any CFL action before. I thought that Mike Rose was an absolute beast for Calgary in this one. He was the best player on the field. I mean, he really does have the potential to be the most dominant defensive lineman in the CFL on any given week, and we really saw that this week against the Argos. And then I think Tommy Lee Lewis also had a really nice game for the Stampeders. He had 9 catches, only like 60 yards, but I think you saw his impact in the short to intermediate game could be really impactful with that short area quickness that he possesses. So I think that was huge for the Stampeders. And I forgot to mention the stat line I wrote on the board here for Dedrick Mills. 27 carries, huge workload in this one, 137 rushing yards, 4 receptions, and 18 receiving yards as well. So huge game for him. Really controlled the clock. It really felt like Toronto didn't have the ball for very long in this one. And I think that, one final note for the Argos that I forgot to mention before. Like I said, this recap's going to be a mess. The Argos are very banged up. They have a lot of injuries coming out of this game. Darius Pickett on defense, who is arguably the team's best defensive player so far this season. Alex Brinkman on the defensive line. AJ Ouellette also got banged up, but he was able to return to the game, so we'll monitor that going forward. But overall, the Argos pretty banged up coming out of this one, and the Stampeders take the victory. So hopefully that's it for this game, and let's move on. Then moving on to the third game of the week, we have the Montreal Alouettes winning 27-14 on the road in Hamilton in comeback fashion. Hamilton actually held a 14-3 lead in the third quarter in this one. Sean Lemon had a monster game for the Alouettes, 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 interception. The Alouettes moved to 4-3 on the season. Big win for them. They win the season series over Hamilton, which is very huge. Could be huge come the season end if these two teams end up tied. So I think this was a huge win for the Alouettes. They overcame a couple of early mistakes. Fajardo had a couple of turnovers in this one. They had a couple of missed field goals in the first half as well. So I think that's what held Montreal back a little bit in the first half, but I think that Montreal ultimately proved to be the better team down the stretch, really took over. They were able to get that run game going in the second half. William Stanback looking a little bit better as the weeks go on, and think Austin Mack has really established himself as one of the best receivers in the CFL, so young in his career. So I think that's amazing to see for the Alouettes. Really good sign for them going forward. And then for Hamilton, it's just disappointing to see how well they started the first half. I think on offense, they actually had a very promising first half with Taylor Powell making his second career CFL start. I think they ran the offense through James Butler, who was having a very nice game. But ultimately, I think there was a little bit too much focus on him in the passing game. Did not push the ball downfield enough and did not make enough plays in the second half. I think they only had 1 first down in the second half, so that's just not going to get it done. So ultimately, a very disappointing second half for the Ticats, very reminiscent of how they played in the second half of games last year. So I think first half has mostly been the issue for them this year, but the second half was the major issue for this team in this one. So I think at the end of the day, a very disappointing effort from the Ticats in this one in the second half. And I think that anytime you give up 18 points in the fourth quarter, not a good sign. I think that, Mark Washington's defense kind of got figured out as the game went on. I think they really failed to stop the run for the most part. I think that that was a big factor in them blowing that lead. They allowed Cody Fajardo to get comfortable run off play action. They got burned on a flea flicker play in the third quarter, I do believe. So I think at the end of the day, the Ticats have a lot to figure out as they go into their bye week, and ultimately they lose this one and lose the season series to the Alouettes. And then for the last game of the week between Ottawa and Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan wins 26-24 at home, and this was a very exciting game down the stretch, and I think that Mason Fine was really good in this one. I think this is the first time he looked very promising as a CFL starting quarterback. 23 of 37 for 296 yards and 1 touchdown without an interception. So good numbers across the board, and I think he passed the eye test as well. I think that the big story coming out of this one was the controversial late game coaching decisions that took place at the end of this game. Ottawa went for it on a 3rd and 1.5, and they got stopped deep in Saskatchewan territory. They threw deep on the second down play. They had 2nd and 1.5, and they threw it deep, and so they didn't give themselves 2 cracks at it to get that first down in that situation. They were only down by 1 point, by the way, so they could have taken the field goal and taken the lead in that situation. And then the next possession, Saskatchewan actually goes for it on 3rd and less than a yard inside their own 20, and there was 2 minutes left in the game, and Jake Dolegala got stuffed on short yardage, so it gave Ottawa another opportunity to take the lead, and ultimately they end up taking the lead, but they kick a field goal on 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line, and they take a 1-point lead, but Saskatchewan has too much time left on the clock. Saskatchewan goes down the field and gets that game-winning field goal and ultimately wins the game. And at the end of the day, that was a big decision from Bob Dice that really didn't pay off. I think in that situation, you really have to trust your offensive line to win on 3rd and 1 yard. You have to get 1 yard in this league. It's just so important. It's almost like a special team in and of itself. So I'm excited to see what happens going forward and how Bob Dice, as a young head coach, learns from that experience and that decision that he made. And I think that otherwise in this game, I thought that Sean Bain was really excellent for the Rough Riders once again. He's had a breakout season, really good offseason addition coming over from Calgary. Anthony Lanier, it's good to see him healthy. Had 3 sacks in this one, so that was huge. Dustin Crum with back-to-back losses for Ottawa, but also they haven't scored a touchdown in back-to-back games. Offensive touchdown, that is, so that is concerning, but I think that these games are bound to happen for a young quarterback at this level, so I'm interested to see how he bounces back going forward. And another concern for Ottawa is their pass defense, and I think their pass defense has gotten torched the last 3 weeks by Calgary, even by Hamilton. They gave up 350 plus yards, and then Mason Fine had his best game by far so far this season in this one. So I think that's something to monitor going forward. They're kind of getting torched back there in the secondary. And then on a brighter note to close off here, I thought Javon Santos-Knox looked excellent for the Red Blacks in this one, coming over from Hamilton. He was a really big part of the Hamilton's defense last year, and I thought that he was all over the field in this one, had a big short yardage stop late in this game that could have given them an opportunity to win, and I thought that ultimately he was a big bright spot for the Red Blacks in this one. So ultimately, those are just my thoughts on Week 9 of the 2023 CFL season. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Sorry about this video being all over the place, guys. I haven't done a recap video by myself in a while, but figured I'd just throw it back old school for this one and do the style of video I did the last couple of years for the recaps. But next week I'll be back on the Markcast, so I'll see you guys there. Peace.